If you ask most people why Jewish men cover their heads, they will give you an answer. It's a commandment. It's in the Torah. It's one of the ancient laws. Here's the truth. It is none of those things. Open the Torah. Search every page. Search all 613 commandments that Jewish tradition identifies within its text. You will not find it. There is no verse that says, "A man shall cover his head." And yet, this small piece of fabric, worn at the very top of the head, has become, after the Star of David, the single most recognizable symbol of Jewish identity anywhere in the world. Something that started as a private act of personal devotion, practiced only by the most pious, became over centuries something worn by millions. Today we are going to find out how that happened, and what this small piece of fabric is actually saying every time it is worn. Welcome. What you are about to learn corrects one of the most common misunderstandings about Jewish practice. And once you understand where this tradition actually came from, you will understand something much deeper about how Jewish life turns personal devotion into shared identity. By the end of this video, you will see this small object differently, not as a rule someone follows, but as a story someone is telling, with their own body, every single day. Before we go further, if these ancient teachings have given you something to think about, subscribe right now. One tap. Every week, this channel goes deeper into the wisdom and traditions of the Jewish people. And this community keeps growing because people like you believe these things are worth understanding. Subscribe. And let's begin. The object is called a kippah. In Hebrew, the word means dome. In Yiddish, it is called a yarmulke. And here is where the story actually begins. Not in the Torah, but in the Talmud. The Talmud, compiled in the centuries following the destruction of the Second Temple, records something interesting. It describes covering the head not as a requirement for all Jewish men, but as a practice of the unusually devout. One story in particular has been told for nearly 2,000 years. It involves a rabbi named Rav Nachman bar Yitzhak. Before he was born, astrologers told his mother that her son was destined to become a thief. Troubled by this prediction, his mother gave him one instruction: cover your head, always, so that the awareness of heaven above you will stay with you constantly. He did, and the Talmud records that he grew up to become one of the great Torah scholars of his generation. This story, and others like it, established an idea. Covering the head was a physical reminder, a constant, quiet signal, worn on the body, that something is above you, that you are never alone, that you are always, in some sense, being observed. In the centuries that followed, this practice, once reserved for the unusually pious, slowly spread. By the medieval period, covering the head during prayer had become widespread. By the early modern period, in many communities, it had become constant, worn not just during prayer, but throughout the entire day. What began as an exception became the rule. Now, here is something that I find remarkable. The Yiddish word yarmulke, scholars believe it comes from the Aramaic phrase yira malka, which means awe of the king. Think about that for a moment. This small circle of fabric, the size of your palm, carries in its very name an entire theological statement. Awe of the king. Not fear in the sense of being afraid, awe in the sense of recognizing something vastly larger than yourself. The Talmud puts it even more directly. It says, cover your head in order that the fear of heaven may be upon you. This is the core idea, not a law about clothing, a law about posture, about how a person carries themselves through the world, with the constant, quiet awareness that they are not the highest authority in the room, that above their own thoughts, their own plans, their own ambitions, there is something greater. And the kippah, sitting at the very top of the head, above even the mind itself, is a physical reminder of that truth. Every time it is touched, adjusted, put on in the morning, a small gesture, repeated daily, for an entire lifetime. So why did something that started as an act of unusual piety become, over time, nearly universal among observant Jewish men? Part of the answer is what we discussed in our video about peyot, the side locks. Jewish tradition contains a recurring theme. Distinguish yourselves. The 17th century scholar, David Halevi Segal, gave a specific reasoning for this. He observed that in European societies, it was customary for men, particularly clergy, to remove their hats as a sign of respect. Segal reasoned, If removing the head covering is the non-Jewish practice, then Jewish practice should be the opposite. Keep the head covered. Not as a rejection of others, but as a way of preserving something distinct, something that would not simply dissolve into the customs of the surrounding world. Over centuries, through different countries, different languages, different political systems, this small practice remained constant. A Jewish man in Morocco, a Jewish man in Poland, a Jewish man in Yemen, a Jewish man in New York. Different clothing, different languages, different customs and almost everything else, but the same small circle of fabric, at the top of the head, for the same reason. Awe of the king. We are halfway through, and what comes next is something that connects this tradition to something deeply personal. If this video is giving you something you did not know this morning, hit the like button right now. 1 second. It helps more people find these teachings. And if you have not subscribed yet, now is the time. Because what we are about to explore is the moment in a Jewish boy's life when this small object becomes something much bigger. For many Jewish families, the kippah is not just worn, it is given. A father places the first kippah on his son's head, sometimes as early as infancy, often by the time the boy begins attending religious school. From that moment forward, that small circle of fabric becomes part of how the boy experiences the world. He wears it to school. He wears it while playing. He wears it at his bar mitzvah, the ceremony at age 13, when a Jewish boy formally takes on the responsibilities of Jewish adulthood. He wears it at his wedding. He wears it, for many men, for the rest of his life. Through every joy, through every loss, through every ordinary Tuesday that makes up the vast majority of a human life. The styles change over a lifetime. A small, simple cotton kippah as a child, a knitted kippah as a teenager, often with colors representing a school or community, a black velvet kippah as an adult in many traditions. Different fabrics, different colors. Different communities have different styles. Some wear large, some small, some only during prayer, some constantly. But the same idea, worn at the same place, for an entire life. And when that life ends, in traditional Jewish burial, the kippah often remains. A final, quiet acknowledgement, worn into the next world the same way it was worn through this one. So let's go back to where we started. Most people assume the kippah is a commandment. It is not. It is something, in some ways, even more remarkable. It is a custom, something that began as one person's private devotion, a mother's instruction to her son nearly 2,000 years ago, that became, through generations of people choosing to adopt it, one of the most recognizable expressions of an entire people's identity. No emperor decreed it. No single law established it. It spread because individual people, generation after generation, looked at this small gesture and decided, this is worth doing. This says something true. I will carry this too. And in carrying it, they created something no law could have created. A symbol that belongs to everyone because no one was forced to wear it. A tradition built, quietly, voluntarily, repeatedly, by millions of individual choices, each one small, each one the same. Awe of the king, worn, by choice, at the top of the head. A small circle of fabric, not commanded in the Torah, not one of the 613 commandments, and yet worn by Jewish men and boys across every continent, every century since the Talmud, every community from Yemen to New York. A custom that began with one mother's instruction to one son, nearly 2,000 years ago, and became, through countless individual choices, repeated daily, across generations, one of the most universal expressions of Jewish identity on earth. What strikes me most about the kippah is not what it represents. It is how it came to represent it. Not through commandment. Through millions of people, across 2,000 years, each one placing something small on top of their head each morning, and meaning it. Before you go, I want to ask you something. Now that you know the kippah is not a commandment, but a custom that grew, person by person, into something universal, does that change how you see it? Write your answer in the comments below. One sentence is enough. I read every single comment, and this community gives some of the most thoughtful answers I have ever read. If this video corrected something you thought you knew, hit the like button right now. It helps more people find these teachings. And subscribe, because next week, we are exploring another tradition that most people have seen, but never had explained. One that connects directly to one of the most important days in the Jewish calendar. You will not want to miss it. One tap to subscribe. Thank you for being here. Shalom.